Alright, I've had a little time to process things and remember more. Sorry if this is going to be shorter than you like, but I still have trouble remembering parts. My memory has always been terrible. And whenever I try to think about what it was, my eyes still water. I wrote the whole thing out over like an hour, but I'm not a good storyteller, so I've condensed it into this. It's 03, I'm about 9 years old. My best friend lives a block away from me, we do everything together and so do our families. Called my dad this morning to fill in blanks. We don't talk much anymore, so the call was odd to him, I'm sure. He says their dad was his friend from college and that's why we did everything together. He also said that was the last camping trip any of us went on with them, but as soon as I brought it up he changed the subject and hand-waved everything. Back to 03, find out they're going on a camping trip to kick off the summer, but my dad's keeping us home since he has work. Beg for days to go and finally he relents. Wasn't sure if I was old enough to go without family. It's fucking awesome. I get to spend all day on the lake and playing in the woods with my friend and his siblings. Here's where things are more like flashes. Images, sounds, and smells. Day comes to a close, it's dark but not too late. Dinner was cooking on a grill. Radio is sitting on the table. I want to go to the bathroom. Campground bathrooms are up a gravel path. I feel big and brave, I'm on my own for the first time after all. Dumb, I don't tell anyone I'm leaving, even for a little bit. Path is dark. Have a small plastic flashlight. Can still see fire to my right, path bends. The woods are quiet. Sign of the Judgment is playing in the distance. Remember the song because I never liked hearing it after and didn't know why. I stop. I don't know why when I do. I stand still for what feels like minutes. I see something walk out of the woods. Tall. Tree, not tree, legs. Deer walk. One leg. Other leg. Like quiet dancing. No sound of gravel. Just music. Eyes try to go up. Like looking at sun reflecting on water. Eyes watering while trying to type. Have to keep wiping them. A silhouette filled with stars. Not what it looks like, but brain won't see. It turns, looks at me. Bones feel like glass, ice. Can remember tip of its head. Crown/antlers/horns. None of these but all of them. Too scared to scream. Nothing for a while after that. Then the campfire. Then ride home. Still dark. Don't want to look out truck window. That's the gist of it. I'm a bad storyteller, but I feel like I could explain better if asked something specific. If anyone cares. If this sounds familiar to anyone, please tell me. I want to know what I saw. I want to see it without tearing up.
Okay boys, mine isn't that long, but I swear to God it really fucking happened. Be me. Really young, I don't know the exact age. Sleep in my mother's bed with my sister and my mother, obviously, because cuddling with my mother makes me sleep better. For some reason wake up in the middle of the night. Look around. Look to your left. See some human-shaped, completely white and very transparent creature. It slowly walks towards the exit of the bedroom. What the fuck am I seeing? GIF. It suddenly stops. It slowly turns his head back. It stares at me for a couple of seconds. After that it vanishes. Holy fucking shit. JPG. Try to fall asleep again. Pick unrelated.
I have a few experiences which I could relate, if you don't mind reading through a non-Greentext story. When I was young, my mother and I used to take long nighttime drives through the countryside, while visiting my aunt in British Columbia. My affinity for the strange and disturbing might be partially attributed to these nocturnal adventures. My mother is the adventurous sort and loves nature more than anything, and I enjoyed the strange sort of emptiness and solitude which the night afforded me. Sometimes we would listen to the radio, but mostly we just looked out at the road winding in front of us. Nighttime in the country is an awesome sight to behold for someone like me who spent the majority of the year in the lamppost-lighted suburbs of Montreal, for it is so dense as to obscure nearly all detail not directly illuminated by artificial means. I used to try and imagine, for my own entertainment, what strange and terrifying secrets lay just out of view of the headlights, or half spied in the shadows. It was a cheap thrill to face such uncertainty, comforted by my position in the car which, in the end, offered no real protection from what could have been out there save for its mobility. One night my mother and aunt stopped the car just off to the side of the road and told me that we were going for a nighttime hike. Now I admit that the loss of comfort given to me by the car may have exaggerated my perception of events, but I can tell you that everything I tell you actually happened. Now don't ask me why my aunt thought that this was a good idea. She was always more of a person of impulse than one of foresight. She was the kind of person who had a bear as a pet in the 40s and confronted escaped lunatics in her time as a cleaner for an asylum. It was approximately 2 minutes into the walk that we discovered the burned-out remains of a bullet-torn Volkswagen Beetle in a ditch to our left. I told them that now would be a prudent time to turn back, but they told me that the wreckage looked rusted and had probably been there for weeks or years. This did not reassure me, nor did the discovery of that car's door some 200 meters down the trail. I comforted myself, as all boys and for that matter many men do, by finding a heavy stick and holding it tight. It was about 5 minutes or so later that my mother walked closer to me and told me in a hushed tone that someone was following the same trail behind us. I wondered if I were capable of making any use out of my damp stump against a grown man should anything happen, but even at this young age I knew that I didn't stand a chance and neither did my mother and elderly aunt. The three of us slowed down the uphill path so as to try and turn back before going any further away from our vehicle, but just as we turned back the man darted into the woods. All I could make out was a worn, green rain poncho, this despite the fact that it was not raining and had not rained that day. We made it back safely to the car and left in a hurry. To this day, my mother does not admit that the late night excursion was a bad idea. I have more if you want, or MITL, doctor? Okay, when I was 13, I helped my aunt move from her home in BC to my hometown near Montreal. As I have already stated, my aunt was impulsive and quite adventurous, both of which contributed to our coming into contact with many strange people. I believe it was somewhere in the prairies that we attracted the unwanted attention of a strange man in a Zeller's diner. My mother was the first to notice his stare and alerted us to his presence. I don't remember much of his appearance other than his eyes. They were the sickly pale irises of a man with cataracts, but his glare was too focused for him to have been so afflicted. He never took his eyes off us. Not even to drink his coffee. In retrospect, I do not recall him staring at any of us in particular, just that we were being watched closely by a grayish man who made no effort to conceal his interest and did not look away once noticed. We thought it quite creepy but nothing more and left without any incident. When I say we, I mean to say my mother and I, for my aunt just felt sorry for who she believed to be a lonely man. I would not remember the incident if it were not for the fact that, later in the evening and many miles away, we saw him again in a room opposite ours at the motel we were staying at. Still, my aunt would not have thought ill of the man had he not still been observing us at the threshold of his room, his door inched open, wearing nothing but an open bathrobe. We called the front desk, who must have called the police. Once the police left, the man could still be seen staring at our room through his blinds. I did not get much sleep that night and barricaded the front door, just in case. We left early in the morning, not wanting to be near that person one moment longer than necessary, and as we pulled out of the parking lot we saw him run out of his room, still in his dressing gown and giving up after a few feet. This happened to me when I was too young to remember, but I am assured of its authenticity, though I take her interpretation of it with a grain of salt. When I was a baby, my mother traveled with me on a Greyhound bus. Now, being an attractive woman and having traveled quite often on long bus rides, she was no stranger to creeps or even the mentally unbalanced bothering her. On this occasion, however, she tells me the person who assaulted her was not merely deranged. A strange old woman had come up to her and, acting quite sweetly initially, asked to see me. My mother felt that something was off about this woman and said no. As she refused, the woman's eyes, I am told, turned milky and she began screeching and clawing wildly after me. Thankfully, she was stopped by fellow passengers and escorted off the bus, though she never ceased screaming. To this day, my mother is convinced that the woman was an energy vampire. Like I said, I take her interpretation of the events with a grain of salt.
I wanted to share this story with you/X/ it happened a few days ago. I would share it sooner, but I was scared AF and needed some time. So here we go. Be me 23. Be 4 days ago. Decide with friends that we should have a movie evening with horror movies and shit. For the sake of anonymity, and on me, Jeff, Greg and Tom will be the names I use. None of us have a proper place, so we decide to go to the abandoned house at the end of the village. It's a really cool place, windows broken or boarded shut. Door is missing. The four of us head there. I bring my projector and extra batteries. Greg has a laptop and some movies. Jeff brings some snacks. Neat. We get there around 9 p.m. Take a look around to ensure no hobos in the house. We go to a big-ass room to ensure maximum projector quality. Must have been living room one day. All set up, time to watch some shit. We watch a few old school films and laugh about the terrible game. Around 11 Tom goes to the toilet. This means basically that he goes outside and takes a piss somewhere randomly since the house is abandoned and no water etc. He comes back and looks confused. That guy's really funny, whispering around the corner when I'm taking a piss. Very original. We didn't know thing lip .wmv. Come on. We did nothing. Maybe you just ate too much zebra cakes. We carry on with the movie night. Now we watch some horror movies. Sysgumgud.mp3. We start arguing over something, so pause the movie. Then we hear it. Something that sounds like someone is walking in the attic. Maybe some crackhead wants to sneak up on us and steal our stuff. So we pull the good old Scooby-Doo trick. Let's split up. I go and check the attic with Greg while Tom and Jeff guards the equipment. We joke about Jeff who is spooked while we are looking for the entrance to the attic. Ladder has been located. We lift the cover up and check around. Nothing special. Boxes, old books, toys etc. regular attic stuff. As we look around we spot an old rocking horse. I'm not shitting with you guys, it was rocking on its own. Not like somebody gave it a push and you can see it getting slower and slower. It kept rocking on a constant speed. Time to fuck out. JPG. We start slowly going towards the ladder but we face the fucking thing that is still moving. Greg accidentally kicks a jar on the ground. Horse stops in an instant. We make a run for the exit and fall down the ladder. Tell the others what happened. They think we just want to spook them. We eventually continue the movie. Greg is totally out of it, spooked as fuck. Let's just watch something to calm his nerves since we don't want to push you out. While we are looking through movie folders, weird static comes on the loudspeaker. Then it stops. What just happened? PNG. The projector is off to save battery power. As we turn it back on we see the most horrible fucking thing that I ever witnessed. When you switch on the projector you know there's this blue screen for a few seconds until it gets ready. Now we switched it on and something cast a fucking shadow on the wall, except there was nothing there to cast shadow. Looks like the shadow of a child that is standing at the wall, thread pick related. It stood there for maybe 2-3 seconds. We just watched in horror, we couldn't even scream, although I wanted to. Then the shadow, and not shitting, started running towards the projector. Towards US. Projector switched off, hell breaks loose. M.P3. We basically stormed for the nearest exit. Well, not all of us. Jeff jumped out of the window taking the wooden frame with him. We ran straight home. The day after we returned to retrieve our stuff. The food is rotten, although it was left alone for only like 6-7 hours. Decide to never go there ever again.
Lived in a podunk trailer in the middle of nowhere. Surrounded by hundreds of acres of woodland on all sides. Constant feeling of being watched. Everybody was paranoid to go outside at night, even my 6 feet 5 inches 250-pound dad. Animals constantly show up dead. Deer and coyote carcasses are constantly being found, as well as small animals like rabbits and squirrels. One day me and my sisters go out to get something to eat late at night. Come back, driving up the driveway, it was about a quarter mile long, and see a creature in the middle of the driveway. It's as tall as the car and has a similar stature to a wolf, except with a caved-in nose like a bat/pug and absolute no hair. It was rippling with muscles. It runs off into the woods. Absolutely terrified, go and tell parents. Everyone agrees that they saw the same thing and none of us were hallucinating. Frequently hear grunts and other noises near the woods. Never walk outside alone at night again.
Be about 16 this time a few years ago. Road trip with some dudes to Satsop nuclear plant in western Washington. Abandoned, never commissioned plant, now just abandoned. Huge forests to the south and the coastal range. Exploring the shit, go under the nuclear tower, pretty cool. JPG. See cop car about to come into facility. Book it out of the tower south towards the woods and run for 10 minutes turning until we all slide down the steepest hill eating shit. Around 4 of us. No one remembers which way we ran. Fuck it, let's start walking. Only 3 of us now. WTF. Start yelling shit into woods looking for our dude. Don't know these guys well, just some photographers that decided to let me tag along. Had scream but sounds indecisive and nearly identical to what we were yelling. Start getting on edge, nerve like that voice isn't him. Pull out granola bar and eat half. Put the rest in my drink, side pouch. It's around 4:30, wondering why we haven't come to the facility or main road. Try to head whichever way we think is north. Walk in the miserable raining forests of coastal Washington for an hour. Every now and then the entire forest goes quiet, not a sound except our breathing. It's around 6 now, so pretty dark, early January. Feel hand on shoulder. It's the missing guy, but he hands me the wrapper of my granola bar. Think you dropped this. He looks like shit, his shirt is ripped and he smells like fucking vinegar and dried blood. Where were you? It's been 3 hours. Just got turned around, decided to head north. Weird but okay. Keep walking until we reach the facility again. Missing guy says he has to go get his shoe, he left it behind. Doesn't ask us to wait for him, but okay. See missing guy under tower, nuclear tower. Where the fuck have you been? I lost you guys and got fucking attacked by a cougar. He's pissed as shit and missing both shoes in his bag. We all swear we just saw him with his bag and 1 shoe. He calls bullshit, he's been waiting here for an hour. Thought he had heard us, but no one would reply back when he yelled. Here from the woods, where are you? Gus, quit fucking around. He says he can't fucking believe this shit, he was yelling that an hour ago. He has huge cuts and bites on his body from said cougar. Decide it's best time to leave. As we book it to the car here, with 30 EUIs. Get to car and find granola bar wrapper on hood. Fucking Skinwalker eating my granola bar.
This is going to be a shitty post. Sorry. My grandfather passed away recently. Decide to go home to be with family and try to do comforting to whoever. Live in my state's capital and hometown is about 3.5 hours away. Driving there in the dead of night. Thick-ass fog starts wrapping around the hills. I am not happy with this update. Keep driving slowly but keeping enough speed so I don't feel like a pussy. Get to spot by factory, or oil refinery or something that always fucks me off. Not the good kid either. Fog thickens and I'm going 30 in a 75. Fucking ridiculous. Suddenly get this feeling like if I were to lose concentration for a moment I would set myself on the path to an earlier death had my fates had expected for me. Calm my ass down and pay gentle yet staunch attention to road. Eventually passed through it and the rest of the trip was uneventful, except I found some really tasty beef jerky at a local gas station. Sorry it freaked my dick off at the time though, that feeling of being close to your possible demise. It is unsettling.
I have one. B6. Family of 7, our parents are rabbits. Going to Croatia after years of not going. We used to go there monthly before. My dad is self-employed. There's this place where they make delicious spit roasted lamb in the hills. It's just a minor detour off the motorway, totally worth it. Get lost since dad forgot how to get there. Hills get foggy, plus we're on a serpentine. Get deep in a forest. Older brothers saying stupid Silent Hill and other horror reference jokes and shit that I don't even get at the time. Suddenly a goddamn hellhound jumps in front of the car. Dad brakes like mad. Wolf takes a glance at us and jumps into the woods on the other side of the road. I was in the back, so I just saw a large black thing. The people in the front seat say it had glowing amber eyes. Oh, and even I saw that it was pitch black and the size of a smaller horse. It was unbelievably black, the white fog didn't take effect on it. I don't even know how to explain this. My dad stopped like 4 meters away and the road was blurry because of the fog, but not the wolf. I don't know if that's understandable. The fog cleared up minutes after, even though it was there for like 2 hours before, and we found our way back to the motorway. My dad insisted that he didn't make any wrong turns. On the way back, my dad, secretly since none of the family wanted another encounter with that thing, made the detour and easily found his way there, seemingly making the same turns. And I just realized that we were a family of 6, since my little bro wasn't born back then, but I'm too lazy to go back.
I used to go on a lot of road trips with a couple friends when we were 18-20. We were just a bunch of depressed and directionless NYC kids who didn't go to college. It may seem stupid, but getting out of the city was a nice form of escapism. We'd split gas money, buy snacks, and just drive aimlessly all night long. I have a couple of stories. My friend Al and I were driving in northeastern New York State. We reach an intersection. Al asks me to pick a direction. I chose right. We drive on a winding road through the countryside with no houses and no cars. After about 20 minutes we hit an intersection. It's the same one we started at with the very same gas station on our left. Whatever, no big deal. So we go forward this time. Road climbs up a mountain. Our ears are popping from the air pressure, so we open the windows. We come down a winding road and hit an intersection. And there's that gas station on our left. WTF. Maybe we're idiots, we go left this time. We're driving for almost an hour and decide to put on the radio. Weird jazz music, feels good man. Song fades out and there's nothing but silence. Here comes that same damn intersection again. Al and I are worried that we're in purgatory. We turn around and the road is exactly as it was when we first hit the intersection. We're weirded the fuck out the whole way home. Another time Al, Mike, my GF, and I are driving on Long Island. We drive on Sweet Hollow Road. New York fags and kids from Lee know that Sweet Hollow Road has supposedly been haunted dating back to the days of horse-drawn carriages. It's a dangerously winding road. Lots of accidents. People also say that a ghostly woman runs across the road and people get into accidents swerving to avoid her. No ghosts, but so damn foggy we can only see a few feet in front of the car. Dark, foggy, winding road surrounded by trees. Spooky stuff. The car is basically crawling so we don't run into anyone or anything we can't see. We eventually make our way to the equally spooky Mount Misery Road. At the end of Mount Misery there's a dead end blocked by a log wall. Al and I step out of the car to smoke. We walk over to the logs and hear someone on the other side shout, "Get out." We nope right back into the car and drive out to Orient Point where we smoke a bowl and skip stones. Good memories. On a lighter note, when you drive around Long Island there are some places that will make you feel like you are time traveling. Lots of 80s fashion, dudes driving El Caminos, fast food places using their old designs. There's even a Burger King that still makes rodeo burgers, circa Wild Wild Just Hate, now in theaters starring Will Smith. On a more grim note, once my GF and I drive past a car that crashed into a pole. We pulled over to check if they needed help. Driver was just staring into space. A girl in the passenger seat is just rambling about birds. We ask if they're okay. Driver says yup. Should we call 911? I already did. You should just leave. Just keep driving. He never looked at us once. We slowly drove away. Checked back a few hours later and the car was gone. I hope they were okay.
Be me. On school field trip to some farm. Loser even as a kid, so by myself. See a cow. For some reason, I'm in awe of this fucking cow. Stare at it. Teacher asks what I'm doing. Turns out I was staring at the cow for 10 minutes. I told her I was looking at the cow. MFW, look over and the cow is gone. MFW farmer didn't even have animals. MFW nearest farm with animals was like a million miles away. It's been almost 20 years and I still can't explain what the fuck happened that day. Can anyone help me out? This has been bugging me for fucking years.
To start with, this isn't my story but a set of stories told to me by the mother's side of my family. Sometime 80s before I was born and before my mother met my father, in Townsville, Australia. Mum is living with her mother, father, and uncle in her mother's, my grandma's, house in Belgian Gardens, suburb of Townsville. The house backs straight onto these flat, sandy floodplains surrounded by mangroves, sorta swampy looking. Hear lots of stories from people about how creepy those floodplains are. Dad in particular tells me when he was a kid he was playing footy, rugby league for nosleep, out there with his high school friends in the late afternoon, sun is almost setting. All of a sudden everyone stops moving, guy with the ball stops running and everyone says their hair was standing on end, around a dozen people playing. Getting the creeps, they all pack up and GTFO immediately without even saying a word. Mum tells a story from my mum that while she was living with my grandma that in the middle of the night there was this loud thumping at the door to the laundry where the dog was kept, and the dog was barking its head off at who/whatever was rattling and thumping of the door. Mum and her uncle are awake, grandma and grandpa aren't, and they're just frozen hoping it goes away. Eventually it does, but when it does they hear this loud thump 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 like heavy footsteps, far too heavy to be human, heading up the driveway and out towards the street. Grandpa is deaf as a post and sleeps through it, grandma brushes it off. One day I ask grandpa if he's noticed anything strange going on around the house. They've lived there for like 60 years or some shit now, and he said one day he was mucking around with the sprinkler hose in the yard just after the sun went down. All of a sudden, his hair stands on end and he drops the hose, his eyes are fixed on the big bush beside the shed in the backyard. He has this terrible feeling of dread like he's staring at something terrifying. He runs back inside, leaves the sprinkler running all night and locks the door. He tells me he has never been out in his yard past sunset in the 25 years since. Additionally, I later find out that while my own uncle, Mum's brother, was living there he had his own creepy experience. He was walking home from the pub just after sunset along the creek. I think this creek flowed down into the floodplain, and suddenly his hair stands on end. He sees the silhouette across the other side of the creek, probably 50 m away, looks about 8 feet tall. It just sort of slowly drifts across the creek, as if it's floating and not walking. He's frozen just staring at this thing. It stops about 5 meters away as if it's watching him, looks thickly built, almost like a yowie, though neither he nor I knew the specifics of yowie stories other than that they are basically Aussie Sasquatches. He eventually breaks his dazed stare after like 30 seconds and full-on sprints half a kilometer back home and locks the door, and tells me he has never walked anywhere after dark since. Not very interesting or cohesive stories, but these are things that my family have told me about that part of town that they swear happened to them, so at the very least, even if none of it is supernatural, it's probably less made up than most Greentext stories. Maybe some fellow Osfren might have something to add.
Here is one of my stories, hopefully should get you guys interested. And yes, it involves zebra cakes. Be me, 24. Just got back from work, feel like cracking a beer and browsing /x/. I live out in the woods, as is a constant for me. I can't stand towns. I am extremely paranoid and have a shotgun by my desk at all times. Sitting on my ass, eating zebra cakes, and reading some stories on /x/. Ah, the good old days. Stuff a zebra cake in my mouth and look out my window for no good reason. Don't even get to chew a third time, because my mouth drops open and won't close. Six-legged white thing crawling across the road. Grab my shotgun, load in a few slugs, and run up to the balcony. Am not in the mood for this shit. As soon as I open the balcony door, the fucking thing turns around. Its face is a little bit like a hybrid human and bird. It has this pale beak thing, and a human mouth. Its unmentionables are also plainly visible as it rears up to its full height. Shit fucking bricks. Take a well-aimed shot at its chest. Not surprisingly, I miss because I'm a shit marksman. It makes a noise that sounds like screech and runs off into the woods. Runs like a fucking horse. Installed an electric fence, because I'm not dealing with that shit. I guess you guys need a bit more of a nudge. Sitting in bed awake after one of my typical night terrors. Wife is still asleep. Typical. Go to make a sandwich. Make a beautiful turkey sandwich, my proudest sandwich yet. Head outside to walk to my man cave. My man cave is my pride and joy. A PS4, a PC with 16 GB of RAM, 4 TB of storage, a 4.0 GHz hex-core processor, and a GTX 980 Ti. I still don't have a fucking camera. So I'm sitting on my ass, eating my sandwich and watching Netflix. My husky Luna was fucking begging for some turkey scraps. Give in because she is just so adorable. Hear a loud whump outside. Whump.png, I'm used to every weird noise being something completely abnormal, so I break open the old gun locker and grab my yak. Am ready to cheeky the breaky out of this son of a bitch. Open the door, poke my head out, shit again. My fucking goat is dead. And in the tree above it, some fucking thing that looks like a gorilla. My mind immediately goes to Bigfoot, and before I can react, him is out with a hailstorm of pine cones. Motherfucker is chucking them at me. Mentally apologize to my wife and open fire. After about 14 shots, she yells at me through the window. Pine, what the fuck are you shooting at? I start screaming about the Bigfoot killing my goat. The thing jumps out of the tree and runs off, blatantly injured. Whimpering the whole time. Sounded creepily human. I fucking hate Bigfoot.
B11. Sleeping in my room. Noise wakes me up. Near darkness, barely any moonlight illuminates the room. Slowly start to notice a dark figure in the corner of the room next to closet. Can't make out any details, little more than a shadow of a humanoid figure. As I wake up more, I slowly start to panic. Feels like 30 minutes go by as I'm starting at this thing looking for movement, trying not to cry. Hear a loud whump sound like all the air went out of the room. Wake up, it is morning. There are what look like 4 fingerprint marks on each of the bottoms of my wrists, and a thumbprint on the tops. Couldn't sleep by myself for a month.
Okay, here's my own story. Just got out of mental hospital. More like a jail. Get prescribed 100 milligrams Zoloft and come home. Family is there and wants to spend the night. To make sure I don't kilometers. Get into some fight with bitch little sister. Late night and hero ideas come into my head. Take about 600 to 700 milligrams of Zoloft. I thought it would hurt, kill me. Go to sleep, wake up and everything is blurry. I was seeing chairs move to me without anything near it. Suffer through the day with these fucking annoying hallucination. Mad it won't kill me, but I can't be mad because 700 mg of antidepressant. Go to sleep and wake up mad and tired. Now I'm on medical weed like a hippie, but this won't happen again.
Alright op, here's one of my experiences. Am shit at Greentext, but here you go. Be me. 16. Living in southeastern Texas. Went to high school football game to cheer on the team. It was an away game, so I rode the school buses there and back. Get back to my high school at midnight. The hour-long walk home commences. After about 20 minutes down the road I have left civilization. Nothing but trees on both sides. Immediately feel like I'm being watched. Hear noises from just beyond the tree line. Twigs snapping and shit. Don't really think anything of it, but I'm on high alert because I know hogs are in the area. Noises getting closer. Listen intently. Suddenly hear a train down the tracks that are adjacent to the road. Don't see it and it never arrives, just makes noises. Getting really paranoid now because I can still hear twigs snapping and something moving, but I can't place its direction due to the train. Walk faster. Near the supposedly haunted graveyard on the left side of the road. People were worried about the graveyard because Hurricane Harvey had flooded it. The superstitious thought the spirits were distressed. Never really bought into it until this event. Near shitting myself because of fear. Suddenly the train noise is gone. Twig snaps. Look in the direction of the noises. Face staring at me through the trees. Looks like a starving naked albino with an abnormally wide grin. Arms are a foot too long for its body. Skin pulled tight around its ribs. It walked along the tree line watching me. It moved like it was new to walking. Its eyes were glued to me and it never blinked. Started to move faster, but it picked up the pace too. Thought I heard my name being called. Looked away for a split second to find out who was calling me. Looked back and it was gone. Sprint home terrified. When I get outside of my neighborhood, hear a loud crash from the trees, but nothing is there. Sprint faster. When I get to my house I realize that nobody is home, losing my shit at this point. Rush to room and grab my rifle. Don't even try to sleep because I know I won't be able to. Think of playing video. Mere seconds after I turn on my TV I hear a tapping at my window. Second story window. Grab rifle and slowly approach window. Throw open the curtains to see the face staring in at me. Shoulder the rifle to fire. It's gone. Sitting middle of room holding rifle tight against my body. Am about to fall asleep when I hear a voice from the other side of my door. Are you scared? Sounded human but not a familiar voice. Throw open my door to see that nobody is there. All the doors to my house are open and all the windows are unlocked. Close and lock my front door again and return to my room. Light is now off. Rush in with rifle. Turn on light. Nothing's there, but my wallet was open on my bed and my state ID was taken out and placed on top of it. Sit in center of room hugging my rifle till I pass out from exhaustion. My parents got to the house maybe an hour after I fell asleep. I don't know what it was or what it wanted, but I think it was just toying with me. I still see it in my dreams and wake up to tapping at my window. Don't even feel safe in my own bed.
This is the tale of two boys in the woods. It's not my own tale, but it's a true tale. Some would say, no. Not true, that's not how it happened. But it's how the other guy, the one who lived, explained it. They had been visiting a small place in Norway. About 350 people lived there at the time. I lived there. They were city boys, wanted to see the country, the woods, and enjoy a bit of beer and women. At one point a third guy had joined them in their endeavor to enjoy themselves. Later it was told that none of them knew who he was or where he'd come from, just that it felt right to have him there, like they had been missing a piece of a puzzle, and the guy was that piece. Let us call the two friends Gare and John, and the third guy who no one remembers even seeing anymore for Seb. John began feeling ill one night. He told Gare that Seb was acting all weird and that he felt sick being near him. Gare laughed it off, but John became more reclusive and apparently refused to have Seb there anymore. Gare and John fought that day, and Gare told John to stay in the cabin and be sick all he wanted, because Gare was heading out to drink. However, while Gare was drinking, John joined him. It was about 27 below Celsius, Amarifags, and icy that day. John explained he didn't want to sit at home, that he was sorry for his behavior. When they left, John didn't get his jacket back, claiming he was fine without it. Now this is where it gets a bit tricky. You see, Gare swore John came home with him, that they shared a meal, and that John told Gare that Seb had left. Gare thought nothing of it until he was woken by a knocking at the cabin door. It was the cops telling him that John had been found floating under the ice under the bridge, and that his clothing had been found neatly folded in a crossing by a taxi driver, his shoes on top. Apparently John had been dead for about 12 hours. While Gare knew he had spent time with John within that time, rang and told the police so. The police figured he was in shock, denial, that sort of thing. But Gare was adamant. There were 2 plates on the table, and John's bed had been slept in. But when Gare told them about Seb, they became very serious and began asking questions about Seb, how he spoke, how he walked and talked, that sort of thing. Gare willingly explained everything about to Seb. and was carted off to the mental hospital charged for murder but apparently too sick to stand trial. If I think back to that night, it snowed heavily, and the taxi driver found the clothing free of snow, neatly folded. If John died that early, there is no way those clothes wouldn't be covered with snow and impossible to see. So, what's your guess? A skinwalker seemingly gliding into their friendship seamlessly? Or just schizophrenia?
Fuck Greentext calls lazy and on phone. I'm bored as fuck and decided to go hunting. Woods are not far from my house. It's a decent size chuck-if woods, couple thousand acres, but not really a remote area. There are building new subdivisions and shit around here. Wasn't really going out to do any serious hunting. I just wanted an excuse to get off the house and walk. So I take my rifle and a couple joints, get in my truck and head out. Spend a couple hours or so just walking around aimlessly, talking and spacing out. Decide to try to actually shoot something, so I sit down and lean up against a big oak tree. Just chill and watch a couple squirrels in the trees, waiting for one of them to give me a shot. They don't and eventually just vanish. I get bored quickly, so light up another joint. That's when I hear a ton of noise behind me. Sounds like several people or large animals moving through the woods. I'm fucking stoned at this point and paranoid, so I put my joint out and start peeking around the tree to see what's up. See about 6 to 7 teenagers walking in my direction. They stop about 20 meters from my spot and start lighting up cigarettes and cracking open beer cans. Now I'm pissed as fuck cause they ruined my peace. Wait about 20 minutes deciding if I should just get up and move to a new spot. Finally decide to fuck with them. I have a rifle, remember. I unloaded the magazine into a big tree in front of me. The kids were only 20 meters from me. They knocked the fuck out of there screaming like a bunch of little girls. Went over to their spot, found 2 unopened cans of beer. Drank one, shot the other and went home.
Time for some fucking OC. I don't even give a shit if anyone believes me, I just wanna get it off my chest. Live in boonies. Basically forest, gerrymandered by houses and farms that go in and out of repair. There are several other houses right by mine, but I talk to the neighbors exactly none. A fact I'm glad for, because the community looks like some straight up Silent Hill shit sometimes. There's like a weekly spoopy happening, to the point where I got so bored with it I just shrug it off as the status quo. Several weeks back, this changed. The time is 10 AM, and I'm savoring being a lazy fuck for not having to go into work that day, drifting in and out of sleep. Suddenly ear-splitting roar. All of my what? Check laptop. I do comedy YouTube playlists to help me get to sleep, just music tends to put me on edge for whatever reason, to see if it's an ad. No ad playing, halfway through 2-hour video. Nothing in Darkseid 2 makes the sound I just heard. Even if it had been something that loud would have blown out my laptop's rather shitty speakers. Slightly confused, turn off pending alarm and drift in and out of consciousness with laptop on bed so I can roll over and check if I hear it again. Greater than 2 hours later. Halfway conscious. Screeyank motherfucker, forgot about me? The roar both sounded louder and closer. As well as clearer. It sounded like the bastard child of a bear roar and that foghorn cry Godzilla makes. Tactically what? Sounded like it came from behind house. Decide I'm not sleeping until I find out what made that noise. Grab lightly ruined oaken hiking staff. Grab fireplace poker. Bathe both in ash, as whatever the fuck made that noise was clearly not of this fucking earth anyways. Trek innawoods. Check glove compass to double check I haven't been turned around like I had before in the same woods. Glove compass is going beyond fucking nuts, spinning like a top, occasionally pointing towards direction of clearing I visited before with friends. I am a clearly sane, rational, and level-headed individual, so obviously I go towards the noise. As I get closer, hear thrashing in the clearing. As well as a cow. There's a dairy farm next to my house, but I don't recall Farmer Dan breeding fucking mutants. Start to see shit that's clearly off. Large movements through the gaps in the tree lean. Low rumbling sound. Unnatural heat, suddenly very glad I hadn't changed out of my sleep shorts. Occasional burn mark on the ground. Yes, I am that retard in the horror movie that moves towards the live hellmouth apparently. Eventually get to clearing to see what the ruckus is about. Peek out from behind tree. It's a fuck mothering dragon. Or at least that's what I'd fucking assume. Think less Tolkien, more Lovecraft. It had pale gray skin that looked like boiled konjac, to the point where it appeared actively wet. It was hexapedal, balanced on 6 squat legs that looked like an elephant's more than anything. There were a pair of massive wings on its back that looked like they could actually lift the monstrosity off the ground, even folded they seemed beyond massive. Its tail looked like it had been stumped, not in the way that it had cut off, but there was some sort of bulbous mass where the tail was supposed to continue. And then there was its head and neck. It was like some kind of fucked up xenomorph. Recesses where its eyes obviously should have been, but they seemed to have skin over them. Yellow teeth sticking out its closed maw on both sides, painted red with the gore of the cow it had just finished eating. And that's when my brain got a chance to catch up from holy fuck dragon and got a chance to look at the rest of the clearing. It was totally scorched. Like, basically everything was blackened. Hear snapping noise in woods roughly to the left of me. Dragon looks up. Its head is pointed in a decidedly uncomfortable at me direction. Hide behind tree. What smells like ozone? Suddenly rushing sound, like a dam burst. About to look from behind tree but my judgment gets the best of me. Good fucking thing. Because I suddenly find myself a yard from a large stream of aggressive something. To this day I can't figure out what it was exactly. Going out of Greentext here for a second, it didn't seem to be exactly fire or a flammable substance, the movement was too jerky, but it didn't spark or crackle like electricity, and I still have the right half of my body, so I'm guessing it wasn't plasma. But it was sure as fuck burning anything it touched. A spark got kicked up and burnt a sizable hole in my shirt. Begin tactically praying in Old Norse once the fire dies down. Figure I'm not escaping so I may as well go out fighting. Jump out from behind tree ready to suicide charge a dragon. Hear rustling from same spot as before. Boom. Same roar as before, followed by some decidedly unpleasant shrieking. Large gaping hole opened in eye recess. Hear shouting. Get the fuck away from my cows you fucker. Holy shit it's Farmer Dan. Not looking at him, focusing on big fucker. It unfurls its wings and starts flapping, and takes to the sky with surprising expediency for something that had a torso the size of an RV. And it certainly felt like a large aircraft had just taken off. I was nearly bowled over from the force of the wind. It circles in the air once before heading out towards the lake. Stand there for a moment just plain vanilla dumbfounded. More movement. Brandish fireplace poker. Farmer Dan is now about 10 feet from me. The gun in his hands looked like an old-style break action, but the barrels were ridiculously large in diameter. My brain finally processes the fact that I'm being asked a question. Anon, what the fuck are you doing out here? Try my hardest to point out this is not the most important question to be asked in this situation. Finally managed to coax an answer out of him. Apparently, several of his longhorns went missing from the pasture, and he caught sight of it moving to that clearing after one more had disappeared. Hunter friends had apparently reported some weird goings on in his backwoods to him. Said they'd found some freaky shit and some biggest nest. Only one dead cow in this clearing however, and no nest to be seen. My brain refused to examine the possible meaning of those facts at the time. Ask him about the gun. Says he uses it to hunt whatever goes after his cows. The inflection implied this was not the first supernatural entity he'd shot at using this shotgun. Farmer Dan stops me before I get back on the path. Don't tell nobody about this Anon. No use causing a fuss over some fairy tale nonsense. I am not about to disagree with a man holding what I can only assume is a 2 or less gauge. Walk back home and fall asleep. Wake up later that day, assuming it was all some sort of fucked up dream. Look down and notice hole in shirt was legitimately there. Brain reeling for not dragon related answers. Half-heartedly settle on this somehow being the shirt I'd burned slightly during a bonfire several years beforehand. Forced to confront reality when I notice said shirt lying on the floor. Decide then and there I'm moving to the largest city I can get to so I don't have to deal with this bullshit anymore. There was a huge rainstorm the next day so a lot of the char was washed out, but sure the fuck enough, when I went back to that clearing several days later it was filled with morel mushrooms, so it had to have been scorched at some point. I don't know what the fuck I saw, and I don't know if /k/ would have any better idea of what it was, but if I ever know that thing's in the area again, I'm finding as many /k/ Amandos as possible, and leading realities, probably, first dragon slaying raid.
Be me. Greater than 14 years old. Middle of the night. Thirsty as fuck. Go to grab some water. Pitch black in the kitchen. Flip light switch. Guess the bulb died. Go to fill up my water bottle. Hear tapping and footsteps from living room. Assume it's my cat. But these are mildly heavy footsteps. My full focus on living room. Genuinely scared, frozen stiff. See a figure with eyes appear out of the darkness. Nope the fuck out of there. Grab my BB gun in my closet, it fires full metal pellets. Lay in bed with the gun aimed at my door until sunrise. I don't know if I was just imagining shit but I was fucking spooked for a solid 3 years of going back into my kitchen late at night.
Hi op. Got this hunting story. It is pretty creepy. Boar hunting in a woods with a bro. It starts getting dark. Set up camp, call it a night. Later in the night. Woken up by some rustling outside the tent. Creep out of the tent, hit with a sudden powerful stench. It's coming from every direction. Grab my loaded nugget, affix bayonet, tromp forth with nose plugged. Feel my feet starting to sink into the ground deeper with each step. I think I'm getting into some marshes. Suddenly hear a voice behind me. This is my swamp boy, and those boars are mine too. I don't even have time to turn around before I'm forced onto a tree and my pants are ripped clean off. You've overstepped your boundaries, now it's time for some Shreksual punishment. Feel a sharp pain in my ass, faint almost immediately from pain.
Be me. Be 15. In high school. First month of junior year. Take theater tech. Play hide and seek in the auditorium with a bunch of other people. Be it with someone else because I'm a fucking chicken. Up in the catwalks. See figure on landing. Figure is translucent and pure white. No features. Only head and shoulders are visible. Call out like an idiot. D, are you on the catwalks? No. C, I'm down by the pit. Slowly descend stairs. Get to landing where figure is. Boy. Lean in to get a better look. Its head snaps over to look at me. Fucking run down the stairs like a little bitch.
This was one of my friend's dad's stories. Ted grew up in the late 60s in Eatonville, base of Mount Rainier. His dad owned a cabin on the edge of town, and he was a pretty outdoorsy kid. He was about 16 when the story took place. Him and a friend, 17, we'll call him B, took a weekend camping trip up the side of the mountain. Drove up a logging road for a while, then hiked 2 or 3 miles till they found a site. Clearing in the trees, mossy ground, perfect place for a campsite. Hadn't been too rainy, so a fire was no problem. Ted and B brought a 2-person tent, and Ted's dad gave him his .45 to take with him for bears and shit. Get tent set up, Ted and B leave to get firewood. Nothing abnormal, but while they're walking Ted said that they heard a deer run off, covered by the trees, they didn't see it. They also find some bones of a deer, a shoulder with leg and the head had been dragged about 20 feet away up the hill. Daylight's fading, so Ted and B take what they have and get back to the tent. Build a fire, and bullshit till about 8 o'clock. Ted and B hear a shriek up the mountain. Sounded similar to an elk call. Nothing too weird, but Ted still grabs a pistol from the tent. Sets it on his lap. At about 9 o'clock, They heard bushes rustling and branches breaking at the edge of the clearing. Thinking it's a bear, Ted fires the pistol in the air. Noise stops. They put out the fire and get into the tent. B wakes Ted up in the middle of the night and tells him to listen. There's noise in the clearing, like footsteps. Ted looked at B, who was white as a clansman's robe. They're pretty damn far up the mountain and the lodging road was no longer being used. There shouldn't be anyone up here. Bears also tend to start hibernating around this time. So it shouldn't have been a bear. Neither of them slept the rest of the night. Next morning. Campsite looks fine. Moss around campsite and around tent looks trampled. But moss doesn't give good footprints. They decide to pack and leave camp after breakfast. Need more firewood. B gathers while Ted watches with pistol. From about 50 feet away they hear the same shriek as previous night. Ted and B book it. Stopping just long enough to grab packs from campsite. They start running the remaining distance to the logging road. They hear rustling the entire time they are running. Get to the truck, start that shit up and drive like hell down the mountain. I'm pretty sure Ted also said something about seeing a figure off the side of the road. This was like 6 in the morning as well, so the sun was just starting to come up. Ted didn't go camping after that and didn't let my friend and I camp outside of his cabin. He also owned a fuckload of guns. He used to tell us this shit when we were staying at the cabin at like 10 o'clock at night. Didn't make for good sleeping.
OK/X/ it's 0730 and I'm still up for some reason. So I decided I'd go ahead and share what creepy stories I have since I've already noped myself out of sleeping anytime soon with the creepypasta threads. So here goes. Be me around 10 years ago, 12-13 at the time. Lived in a swampy region in a town called Citra in FL. Decent sized piece of land, around 5 acres or so. We had a big field around a quarter mile from our back door, clotheslines and shit, since poor no dryer. One night around 10 p.m. I think. Have 2 younger brothers, at the time, 9 and 10. For some reason mom comes out of bedroom and calls me. Anon, I need you and your brother to take the clothes out to the line. I argued of course due to the fact it was pitch black outside and the lines weren't near the house. Mother insists, so we comply. Myself and my youngest brother, 9, head down the steps out the back door. I was carrying the clothes basket full of wet clothes, heavy as fuck. Lil bro had a shitty flashlight. I think it's somewhat important to mention a little bit more about our property and try and give you a better idea of what we were dealing with. Basically for around a quarter mile out the back of our house were thick woods. Now, when I say thick woods, you could not see the sky/stars/moon at all until you got out to the field. And another note, our dad used to tell us we lived on an old Indian burial ground to fuck with us. Maybe it was true. We did find a lot of flint and arrowheads on our property, so here we are in the pitch black under the trees heading out to the field. Anyways, continuing story. So on our way out to field, flashlight starts dying, of course. Start cursing at little brother to fix the flashlight because I can't see shit. OFC, it wasn't his fault, but I was still steamed that I was even having to do this in the middle of the night. He hit it a few times and it became a little brighter and stopped flickering. Continuing out to the lines. Arrive out there and start hanging up clothes while he holds the light. Another thing relative to the story worth mentioning is that I cannot whistle to save my life. I have never been able to, and I still cannot to this day. However, my little brother was pretty good at whistling, so what happened next didn't really faze me at first. Start hearing whistling. Tune is somber and I remember that I felt uneasy hearing it, can't recall how it sounds today, but it was stuck in my head for a while after this. I tell my lil bro to cut out the whistling, that it's giving me the creeps. He shines the flashlight into my face and I was like WTF. He then shines the flashlight onto his face, and he looks legitimately scared. It didn't register immediately, but I realized that he was not whistling, and that it was getting louder and drawing closer. I turned to look out into the field, and with the dim glow of the flashlight I saw the silhouette of a man around 20-30 yards away. I had heard some rustling in the grass, but hadn't thought much of it. We had tall grass in the field and there were almost always rabbits running around out there. The rustling seemed to be getting faster, and drawing closer. Footsteps. At this point I just looked at my brother and said, "Run." I took off towards the house. For some reason Timo's brother picks up clothes basket and tries to run with it. He was right behind me until we hit the wooded area of the property. He couldn't see the ground and he tripped on a stump. Yelled for me to wait for him. Nope kept running. I guess he caught up to me because he was right behind me when I finally hit the back door. Slam door shut and lock it. Mom is standing there with WTF look on her face. Tell her story, and she dismisses it, tells us we can't worry about the clothes in the morning. We told our dad, and to make us feel better he got his shotgun and brought our dog out there to the field with us. Had a pit bull at the time, was a good dog, to investigate. Walked around the area a little bit and checked it out, didn't find anything, so he said it was probably our neighbor whistling, only our neighbor's porch is like half-mile from where we were. My brother remembers it as vividly as I do, and to this day neither of us know what or who the fuck was in our field, but we both agree it was a pretty creepy situation.
At military school. Was the worst kid. Broke a window on purpose. Was thrown in isolation for 3 days. They stripped me of my clothes and my cross necklace. Let me in my underwear in the complete dark for 3 days. Had to split the jizz and blood-stained mattress in half to stay warm. They brought me food and I couldn't see what I was eating. Listened to a broken fire alarm for 3 days. Cried out for anyone. No one answered. Lost my mind to the point of hallucinating. Was finally let out. Tried running away. They threw me back in. And now I think about suicide every fucking day like a PTSD bitch.
Creepy cryptid encounters thread, doesn't have to be in the woods, but my story is. I'm going to apologize ahead of time, this is a fairly long story. Live in Wyoming, won't give out any more location info. Take over dad's old cabin, refurnish it and go in the woods regularly. My whole family used to go camping together all the time, but we stopped as we got older, busy. Not me. Always would go out to clear my head or just for some fun. Been saving up a lot of vacation time, money to have a few extra days off. Ask around, all my friends in GF are busy. Disappointed, but fuck it, we can do another one some other time. Back up my stuff and bring my German Shepherd, Nick Baxter. It was around fall, so it was really beautiful out. Baxter's happy, I'm happy, life is good. Get to my cabin, haven't been for a few weeks so I have to restock everything, but it's actually in pretty good shape. It should be. I spent a small fortune fixing it up. Spend the rest of the day setting up, by dark him cooking dinner and watching TV. The X-Files, the Flukeman episode. Want to get the Halloween, fall feel before going to bed. The next day Baxter and I are out walking the trails. Recently I had begun to walk over them and explore on my own. Dad always warned me not to stray too far, but that was when I was like 12. I'm a big boy now. We walk on, and nothing is out of the ordinary. Birds chirping, sun shining. Walk for a bit, and Baxter starts getting anxious, which is weird, he's usually fine in the woods. Another 5 minutes and I find this old stone building I've never seen before. Like really old, could be early 1900s era. Some of it's still standing, but I can't figure out what it was. Either an old stone house or some type of mill. It was all overgrown and the back was collapsed. I decide the absolute smartest thing to do would be to check it out. Inside smells like really strong cat piss, also has some leaves and shit inside. Obvious signs of life are obvious, I'm smart enough to know not to fuck around in someone's living room. Me and Baxter get the hell up out of there. Unsling my M1 Garand, you can never be too safe. Keep telling myself I'm just spooking myself. Every little crunch or snap off in the woods has me on high alert. Get back to the main trail, when I hear a big ass fuck snap, like someone snapping a limb off a tree. Only something very large could do that. I crouch and ready the rifle. Baxter get down with me, we sit for a few minutes. Figure we can wait it out. Completely expecting a bear to come charging, but nothing. We get up and walk on. About 50 or so yards before the cabin I hear it again. Don't crouch, but pull the ultimate dumb blonde in a horror movie. Is anybody out there? I'm armed, so don't be fucking around. In my defense, I didn't want to shoot some kids or a drunk hillbilly. But yeah, that was some Scooby-Doo tier shit, I know. Nothing, double time it back to the cabin. Baxter is inside, sleeping. But I'm on the porch eating and watching. Nothing happens for the night, and for the next day. Laugh at myself. More than likely was just a bear. Go shooting / hiking / fishing and enjoy myself. Come back from walking Baxter and see a blood smear on the side of my cabin. Somebody tossed a Goatman squirrel at my house. Looked like it had been manhandled before breaking its spine off of my shutters. Assume there's some axe murderer stalking me. Stop going out on hikes and never leave my cabin. Don't want to run either, this place is mine and I'm not leaving early. Next day it rains, stay inside and watch TV or read books. Realize I'm an idiot as I only brought scary horror movies / books and murder mysteries to creep myself out. Walk by the windows, always feel like him being watched, but that's probably just nerves. Have a gun in every room. Next day the rain clears, I get a two-side, because I forgot some floating lawn chairs, but whatever, they'll dry. All broken, every one of them. They were only like 15-20 years away from my house. For future reference, this is when the shit starts hitting the fan. I'm definitely being stalked, I've been hunting enough before to know that. And whatever it is gave its last fuck a while ago and I was late for the show. Which is bad. But, I've got my cabin, plus my Jeep plus a surplus of firearms, thank you based Wyoming. Which is good. If I had known how crazy it was going to get, I honestly wouldn't have stayed. We've had bears and shit before, and usually if you stand your ground and shoot at them they leave you alone. Sitting inside, reading Stephen King's IT, because fuck it at this point, when I hear another thud, this one just to the right of my front door. I don't wanna open the door, I don't wanna open the door. Open the curtains. See a bloody possum still alive, somewhat, twitching. NOPE. Go upstairs to my granddad's war chest and pull out Samuel Goliath, his M14 he smuggled back. Load that sucker up, my .44 Ruger on my hip. I already said every room was armed, but that was just like 9mm per room. Pack up everything else and back in my back. I was still thinking it was some maniac killer, and I didn't want to have guns everywhere if he got inside. Have all my guns, supplies and bags in the living room in case I need to gaunt. Next morning possum is still there, now dead. Toss it back into the woods, and yell something to the likes. Why don't you come out now in the daylight, you fucking pansy? Of course nothing. Since I'm feeling brave I walk the tree line. Whatever was out here broke some more of my shit, lampposts that haven't worked in years, another chair, my fire pit. Fear is slowly being replaced with rage, get Baxter, decide to test my balls in the water. Walk a little while into the trees. I'm a dumbass, I know. I'm officially the fat guy in the slasher movie that hears a scream and says I'll go check it out by myself in the dark. We walk for a bit. The further we go the lower Baxter gets and the more he whines. Don't need Caesar Milan to tell me he's scared of being in someone's territory. In the distance make out a familiar shape. The stone building from before. We've gone too far this time, Scoob, old buddy, old pal. See a tall gray chimney in the back that I didn't notice before. Shit on a dick, that chimney just moved. That's no chimney, and it's not Yogi Bear. Can't make out what it is, but it's pretty tall and slender and gray. Raise M14, yell hey. It sways slightly, then does this awkward leap and dash to the side into the bushes. Get possessed by Tom Cruise from Born on the 4th of July, fire off rounds like a madman. Think I hit it, defiantly heard a groan screech. I know him ripping off that Goatman story where he says it sounds like a cat talking, but that's the best way I can describe it. Don't know if I hit it, it could have been a battle cry for all I know. Fast walk back to the cabin. Don't want to run, especially if I'm being hunted. Make it home in one piece. Packed out everything. I'm leaving Tomro Wood tonight, but I'm not driving around in the dark. Not even the Alma is worth this shit. At the very least I'm coming back with friends. Have everything. Repacking to keep myself busy when I hear Baxter growl. Not deep angry growl, like when the mailman comes to your house, deep back of his throat growl. Take out my .44, and walk slowly to the kitchen. Nothing, no monster, but Baxter is low and snarling to the window over the sink. There's condensation on it, but in one spot like something was breathing on it. And just to make sure my therapy lessons are worthwhile, a handprint on the glass, stare at it for a few seconds, almost start laughing at how ridiculous this is. The print was too long to be human. Tack a pen and put in at the point where your finger meets your hand and see how long it is. Like that long. Rifle over my revolver on my hip, I walk from room to room double, triple hexing to make sure I have everything. Have seen the place this empty since I inherited it. Am really just keeping busy. If I sit for too long I'll go stir crazy, and I had since given up on ever sleeping again. Had Baxter on a leash to keep him close, but soon took it off. Poor guy wouldn't leave my side. And I hear a thud ... again. Then another and another. Check the front, dead raccoon. Disemboweled. Check the back. Rock. He ran out of animals. Check the front. Deer leg. He found another animal. Then I remembered we had these searchlights I had forgot about that you could turn on from the den. We used to play volleyball well into the night when we were little, so Dad put them in. I juggled with the idea. I didn't know if it would scare him off or piss him off. Plus I didn't really want to get a good look at whatever it was. That's when I heard another thump. But the was different. It was going in a horizontal pattern along the outside of the walls. It was samping the sides of my house. My legs were shaking and proud, I didn't piss myself. Granddad used to tell me stories of Vietnam, how you know the enemies is there, but you grip your rifle to the point your knuckles hurt and you wait. But how the waiting is the worst part of all. Fuck it, I turn on the floodlights, and walk to each window. And that's when I finally saw the ugly bastards. I'm not Greentexting anymore because I'll run out of room and I want to this justice. So I'm going from room to room, and I'm not seeing anything. I'm getting more and more relieved, thinking I scared it off. I went to the window right under where the lights were and I saw it. Well, actually I saw the dead deer first next to the trail line, all bloody and torn up to all hell. But I then see this thing. Now, I've read through a lot of creepypastas and /x/threads, watched a lot of those hunting Bigfoot, Goatman shows, and they all have a lot of similarities. 7 to 8 feet tall, red eyes, smell blood in the air, face like a gorilla and build like a brick shithouse. And I can get why people who study them think of them as some missing link to evolution, because yeah, they do look like some long-lost gorilla relative. But whatever in the hell this thing was did not. It was tall, not really tall, but I'd say around 6 feet 3 inches, and slender, long arms, those long fingers that will molest my dreams for years to come, but it face wasn't like a ape, it was more like a baboon. Long and droopy. When I googled pig related, it gave me chills to see it again. It wasn't colorful, but like a black reddish color that matched his fur, which was surprisingly sleek. His eyes were yellow, probably the only relatable thing to the other cryptids, and the light succeeded, like when you turn on a light and wake someone up. It then glanced at me and we had a Clint Eastwood stare down before it snarled back its lips, showing the yellow baboon-like fangs. It screeched like a bat and did that same side-to-side leap back into the woods. I closed the curtain, checked the lock and curled up with my rifle until morning. When it came I made one trip with all my things and drove like a madman back to town. And that pretty much it. My friends and I went back a month later. Some of the shutters were broken off and there were some scratched, but aside from that it was fine.
Okay, X, let's get this over with. I have been debating whether to tell this story for a while now. I speak Singlish with an apology, as it is not my first language. I live in a country called Georgia. After school is over one summer, I and several of my friends decided to go out of town a bit and a bit of adventure travel. The weather is beautiful and can be a very hot summer in Georgia, so I and my friends, 7 them all together, were enjoying long walks. The first few days, it was so much fun, drink and smoke, and we were laughing and everybody's having fun. However, we have a friend called Alex, and we were going with that little crazy man. Not a bad man, but he is not afraid of anything. One night, we were camping in the forest clearing. It's getting dark, so we will all go and get some more firewood, and I and my friend a carb, a knife, and go to cut the sticks. We are there because we have been drinking for a while and we get a bit lost. I and my friend are very frightened and hear rustling in the woods. This is a very dark to find out what it is exactly, but it was coming closer. I call out and out comes running out screaming Alexi, trying to scare us. We laugh it off and say, yes, I was so scared I almost cut him. He said that our friends have not seen us for a while and came to find us because they are a little worried about us. As he speaks, the smell hits me like a punch in the face. I almost vomiting and ask him why he smells so bad. He tells me that on the way back, he wants to show us something, so we walked back and I am still confused why it smells so bad. About a 10-minute walk, we arrive at what looks like a former bunker. Again, the smell hits me in the stomach, worse than what Alexi smells. Tears came to my eyes and asked if Alexi came here. He said he did, but even he was scared and went to find with us and come back. Io Carb is looking at me and says that he is not comfortable, but I want him around, because he has the knife and is a very strong man. We enter this bunker and it's so dark and so cold. But it is also completely silent. The smell is getting worse, because we are on our way to the bunker, and in the end I have to take off my shirt and cover the nose and mouth to stop the smell. As I take off my shirt and wrap it around my face, one of my friends pushing me to the ground and I know they run off laughing. I get up and I see them nowhere, but still hear them laughing in the distance. I do not see very good. I, for my part, in the dark and start trying to find a way back. As I was feeling along the wall, I feel my turn to go through something soft. My eyes focus on the dark and I just vomit everywhere. I just stuck my hand into the eye of the dead man. I look at it further to try and work out why he died, and I can see that around the neck, a dent. I am so confused, because I do not see the rope to hang themselves. I understand that this is a bad smell that I smell. I just try and get back and try and decide not to kill my friends. Io Carb still had the knife, so I'm just in a bunker, it pitch black and I am calling out to my friends. As I was screaming their names, I hear something. I stop for a moment and it is completely silent and so I ignore it. I walk a few stops, and I hear it again. At this time I was really scared and just start running. I can still hear the noise. I trip and fall over and the noise stops. I'm scared. I get up and hear the shuffling. It is at this point I realize that noise going on at the same time. I am moving. I take another step in the dark, and yes, I understand the two-step. One of mine, one of someone else's. I spin around and look behind me. I cannot see very far in the distance, but I do not see anyone at all. I take a step back. A moment later my step lands. I hear something else's move on the ground. I was almost crying at this point. Suddenly, I feel a drip on my shoulder, my shirt off and wrapped around my face. I touched it and it is sticky, but it is still wet. I am stunned and just stand there for a minute. The distance, I hear footsteps and I think my friends and turn around and take a step forward. This step is the worst I've ever taken in my life. I felt cold, wet rope tighten around my neck. I walked straight into a noose and felt being cut up in the air. Now I can hear laughter. Open your mouth and try to laugh. That's what it sounded like. I looked up at the roof and see what haunts me to this day. I can see the outline of what looks like a short, bald man. He was naked, and he is the head of a body. But where his legs start is the mass and then 4 or 5 small stumpy legs sprouting out. How he had been gripping on the roof I do not know. I understand that it was in his footsteps that have been chasing me. A great big tongue hangs out of his mouth, and it comes down and wrapped around my neck. I try to pull it off, but the more I pull the more it tightens and yanks me up. I am not sure whether it's laughing loud or I just got closer, but it gets louder and louder. My eyes grow dim and I cannot fight anymore and I start to piss myself as a little girl. All of a sudden, I hear this terrible screaming and I let loose. I heard the footsteps of others before getting stopped up. Iocarb was making his way back because he only wanted to scare me, and I will drop badly, because I come from him. He brought the knife and cut the monster tongue, and I saw scuttle off screaming and crying across the ceiling. I ran with Iocarb and leave the bunker. I'm so scared. To this day I do not know what it was and I do not want to go back. I gathered all my things and left the camp and walked back the same day, Iocarb and knife. It was 12 years ago. Since then I have never spoken to Alexi again, and Iocarb hanged himself last June. I'm only writing this story, because my therapist told me that it would be good to write it down and it's off my chest. My friends say that he went back to the cave for a year, but because they are close to the road and it is guarded by the military security forces. I went to try and it recently, but seems to have been blocked off. I can still feel it in my neck at night sometimes. So cold.
Be me. Today. Sitting in deer stand. Fuck yeah, opening day of rifle season. At about 9 AM a buck and a doe sprint into the field in front of me. Grab my .243. Aim for the buck. Bang. See a hole in his side. Neither move for several minutes. Still standing there. Neither moving except for eating/twitching tail. Shoot doe. Still standing there. Worked a bolt. Shoot buck again. Still fucking standing there. Shoot off last .243 at doe. Still standing. Grab back up fuddy uggy 6. Mad minute the entire clipazine into the buck. Slowly walk off into a briar grove. I'm now out of ammo. Wutting loudly in my stand. Walk the 2 miles back to my truck. Drive home. Still wutting. See the doe and the buck multiple times the drive home. Neither are bleeding. Multiple holes in their chest. Go home. Lock the door. Try not to walk the dinosaur. Cry while clutching my 12 gauge. What the fuck happened? I'm really creeped the fuck out. I'm sitting in my room, getting scared of my fucking dog stretching.
Some OC. B1517. Live in kind of small town in Texas that's somewhere in between rural and suburbs. My neighborhood has main road on one end of street and the other is all woods for miles. Had friend that lived just on Woodline. Woods now owned by one of the old neighbors, but friend's uncle owned it when it still had an old cabin out there. Tells me he went out there with his uncle for a hike once when he was young and he fell behind a little to look at the cabin. He saw a pale face through one of the windows when he approached it. Noped right the fuck back to his uncle. When he told me, I thought bullshit. I want to find the cabin and convince him to come with me. Find where the cabin had been. Now just rusty sheet metal and some wood. Everything fine, no weird feeling or anything. See, nothing to worry about. Well, I'm still glad to see it's gone. Start shooting and hiking out there regularly. Always with friends. One day hike in the woods alone. Come up on the cabin remains. Sit on a log to take a break. Feel like I'm being watched. Start getting chills. Start feeling the need to look around constantly. See movement out of the corner of my eye. Look, see nothing. Wind picks up out of nowhere. Look up, notice sky is now overcast. Suddenly overcome with a sense of complete terror. Fucking sprint back along the trail to friend's house like a complete pussy. Hang there for a little and tell him about my hike. I fucking told you that place was off. Don't go to that place alone anymore.
Be me. Bena, Alabama. Blue Ridge Sticks, after midnight, late winter 2007. Colt Trooper, SKS, Hacksaw Brez. Thin layer of ice has formed along the ground. Probably dirt in these here woods. Tactically through the trees, suddenly hear someone's voice saying very clearly not too far away, rattle rattle. Call out into the night, hey you. Silence for a moment. Rattle rattle. Voice is similar to a silly voice my ex used to use when talking to her kid. Call out again, a bit louder, hey, out there. Silence for 3 seconds. Rattle rattle. Shoulder SKS. The moon is full, visibility is pretty good for night time in the woods. Start looking around. Rattle rattle. Sounds in front of me, start walking towards sound, SKS ready. Rattle rattle. Suddenly, I feel a warm gust of air and this rifle is wrenched from my hands, while I'm shoved all too hard in the chest. Fall on my ass reaching for Colt Trooper, newly Bubba Brez is sticking out of the magazine holder I usually keep it in. No hesitation I lift it and blah you fa GHGH. The night is day for a split second. The only thing I see in this moment is scraggly, ugly brown hands swiping towards me in the left side of my vision. Then it's comparatively dark. Everything is in slow motion for me now. I can see leaves being kicked up. There's a fox about 20 meters away, running in some random direction. I see my SKS hanging from a low limb of a nearby tree. There's a shape, like an ape turning in the distance, the thing sliding in its turn across the icy leaves. Everything still slow-mo, work the bolt. Blah you fa GHGH. Night is day again and holy tits, this thing has a human face, and it's young and handsome, and it's all scrunched up mad at me for some reason I'll never understand. Dark again, this time I see the leaves again, I see the fox again, I see the SKS again, and I see this beast retreating on all fours, kicking its feet as it gallops into the night, work the bolt frantically. Screw my eyes up and peer into the darkness beyond my vision. Looking for anything at all. SKS softly wobbling where it hangs. Everything is quiet. I'm very still now. Suddenly, tiny little plop next to me. I shudder a little bit. It's a dead bird that just fell out of the tree I'm under. Release breath, grab SKS, leave woods.
Hooked up with a strange girl somewhat recently. Probably the craziest thing that's happened to me. Meet cutie through my cousin. She was insanely weird. I'm a witch kinda weird. We get closer and I invite her to come hang out at my place. Showed me her geisha notebook she brought along. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm not a witch or anything lol, but I live for spooky stuff. We talk about it for what felt like hours. Start to think she doesn't wanna fuck and she just wants to ramble about spells and witch shit. Eventually I make a move. Figure if she wants to fuck then she'll like that I took charge and kissed her. If not then this crazy bitch will get out of my apartment. She's super into it. Fuck yeah, gonna get some strange goth pussy tonight. Things started getting heated. I guess she decided I was Chad enough to fuck her. Go to the bedroom so the fucking can commence. She takes her bag with her notebook and stuff with her into the room. Pulls out a pocket knife. You WTF are you gonna do with that? You seem very open-minded, Kyle. I want you to drink my blood. First thought was no, fuck that. But I remembered that scene in The Doors where Jim Morrison drank that one bitch's blood. I'm really into hippie shit, so you know what, sure. Plus I needed some pussy, it had been way too long. She makes a small but effective cut on her arm and had me drink her blood. Then made me do the same thing and she drank some of my blood. This was her version of foreplay. The things we do for pussy, right guys? We ended up fucking and our cuts were still fresh and bleeding. Shit stung when I started sweating. She wipes the blood from her cut on her chest and face. Asks me lick it off her while I'm pounding away. Wasn't exactly easy since she didn't want me to stop to lick the blood off. She loving it way too much. Grabs my arm, which threw me off balance a little since I was using it to support my body. Starts sucking on the cut insanely hard, drawing more blood out of it. Shit fucking hurts. Pull my arm away and it's bleeding pretty good again. Briefly stop, cause pain, and WTF is wrong with this bitch. Gets pissy, I stopped, but I didn't want to be a pussy about it and tell her she hurt me. So I tough it out and continue fucking. Nothing weird was happening after that, so I was able to get closer to finishing. Oh fuck, I'm about to come. I want you to come inside me. WTF, no, nope. No way was I going to come inside her. But it was so hot to hear her say that. I started getting more aggressive with my thrusts. About to pull out. She locks her legs around me so I can't. Oh shit, I can't stop it from happening. Blow a fat load inside her. She seems happy about it. Tells me she can feel it inside her. Unlocks her legs to let me go. But I already came inside, so what's the point of pull out now? It felt so good that I just lay there inside her before rolling over and passing out. Have horrible dream about psycho witch girl stabbing me in some kind of crazy ritual. Wake up in the typical sweating delirious fashion. She's gone, of course. Didn't even get a goodbye kiss or even a BJ. This is gonna be a funny story to tell the brothers. Notice the pocket knife we used was left on the nightstand. Weeks pass. Can't stop thinking about her and about that night. Dream about her almost every night. Dream that I successfully impregnated her and she has my child. Never forget about them like I do with most other dreams. I can still taste her mouth. Can still smell her scent. Only jack off to the thought of that night with her. Can't get over how weird it was and how weirdly I'm obsessed with her now. Ask my cousin where she is or what happened to her. She's not my friend anymore, you ruined our friendship. What? No explanation, nothing. Still not over her at all. It was just one night. Amazing how a single person could have that much of an impact on me. I'm always wondering what she's doing, since no matter how hard I try, I can't find her again.